we're installing a Madjax seat cover on the factory Club Car Precedent seats. To do this, we're going to use a pneumatic staple gun, 3/8 staples, a small pry tool, scissors, a T30 bit, and a cordless drill. We will start with our bottom. First thing we need to do is remove the factory hardware and factory armrests. Using our T30 bit to begin our seat cover install, first thing we need to look for is the taper on the edge of our front seat and our taper on our cover, and insert seat bottom according to your tapers so that we're all four sides has an equal amount of fabric. Once we accomplish this, start by tacking one staple on the first corner. Going on the complete opposite corner, do the same. You can check your seams on the underside of your seat. When you pull your fabric before you staple, once all four corners are shot, check your seams. Now we're ready to staple our seams in the middle. Starting in the middle, nail one staple in each one, on top of each one of the channels. Your seams aren't always going to work out on top of your channels. Just staple as close as you can to them. Same thing on the other side. When I do the second side, I'll kind of pull up with it as well, just to get any loose fabric out of it. Checking my seam on my corners to make sure I'm not pulling it too tight. Once you stapled each edge on the middle, you'll be able to pull any loose fabric out when we do the edges later. Now that our seams are secured, we can come back and finish nailing off our middle. Going to make some cuts along each side of the channel so that I can pull my loose fabric and staple that as well. Once we have our channels cut, we're going to pull our fabric in and staple down in the channel as well. Starting in the middle, pull your fabric tight. Secure it with a staple. Before moving on to the corner, we need to do our opposite side. Again, taking our scissors, we're going to cut along each channel. Be sure to stay away from your seams. You don't want to cut too close to those. Pull any loose fabric out of the middle of the cushion. Fold it over. Secure that with a staple as well. Once we have all of our middle secured and stapled, we can work on our corners. To do this, pull your fabric and gauge it with your seam. Fold that over as well. Secure. Check the seam. Pull loose fabric in. the other side and do the same thing. Seams look good. Cover's tight. No bubbles. Now we're ready to finish our corners. Then we can work on our sides. At this point, this is what we should look like with our staple pattern before we begin working on our corners and our sides. Now we're ready to begin working on our corners. When we do this, we're using our seam as a gauge. If your seam looks good, and your cover's tight, you can finish nailing. Good. Pull it tight. We will trim this excess off later. Corner looks good. Finish staple. Once we're satisfied with our corners, we can fasten our sides. First step for installing our side cover, we need to be sure that we staple in this channel here, because we're going to come back and trim off this excess fabric so that we can get our factory armrest placed back in. Check your seam. Make sure your seam looks good on the side. When you're happy with it, go ahead and shoot it off. Pull your fabric tight. Staple along that channel. Once we get to the edges, take your scissors, make a small cut both sides so that we can fold that flap over and staple that as well. Just need to secure this side. I'm going to take this flap, fold it over the excess, and then tack it down to the bottom of the seat. Next, we have to place our bracket here. We're just going to cut off this excess as well. Put our bracket back in later. Also, we need to trim up the fabric under the armrest. Go right above your staples. Now we'll repeat this process on the other side of the seat. Now our final step, we'll secure the opposite side. Again, checking our seam. We need to nail into the same channel as well. We'll have to make 2 more cuts. Pull all that loose fabric over, staple that down as well. This will all be trimmed off. Cut our fabric above our staples. We also have our other bracket. We need to trim up this fabric as well. Now that our cushion is completely covered, we need to reinstall our armrests and our brackets. Now that we've reinstalled our factory hardware as well as our armrests, our seat bottom cushion is complete. Our next step, we're going to wrap our lean back cushion. Now to install our seat back cover, face down, you have a top and a bottom. The top is the big U, bottom is the small. Lay it face down. Place your lean back inside. Once you have an even amount of fabric on each side, now you're ready to staple. Now that we have our cover in place, we'll start in the first corner. Place one staple just to hold it. Then do the complete opposite corner. Pull that in. Equal amount of fabric as you pulled on the first corner. Tack that. Same thing with the next two. One staple to hold. Final corner. Now we can nail our seams. I'm going to start in the middle. You want to pull over the same amount as you did on the four corners. Straddle your seam. Put you a staple on it. Same thing in the other side. Do the two seams at the top. You can lift your cushion up and check and see how much you can get out of it. Once you're happy, staple that seam as well. Take it and roll it with your hands. You can get a little more out of it. Hold that in place. Staple that seam as well. Now we can come staple our middles. Then we'll work on our corners next. All you want to do here is just pull it, get the loose fabric out. On the bottom, you just want to pull it tight so that your curve looks good. Once you get that folded over, place three in the middle just to hold it. Check it one more time. You can pull the edges in, no problem. Same thing on this other side. Pull that in, and then your bottom is finished. We're going to do the same thing on the top here, but we're going to leave this part for last. I'm going to roll this top over to try to get any kind of loose slack out of the cover. One more seam, we can go ahead and straddle that as well. Now that that's done, our next step, we'll work on our sides and corners. So to start with the corner, you want to pull any loose slack out of the cushion again. Roll it over with your hand as much as you can. Anywhere you have rollover like this, the tighter you pull it, the more it'll come around the side of that cushion. Staple your extra. Do our other corner. Check my seam, everything looks good. We'll make a small cut here to allow this vinyl to sit down a little better. Pull this hump out. Now we're ready for our sides. Again, we're going to use our seam as a guide. Three in the middle. Check it as I go around. Work out my extra. Now that that corner's done, nice and smooth, our fabric is running at a pretty good, straight, even amount. We're ready to do our other side. Once again, check your seam. Pull your fabric over. Need some extra, roll it with your hand. Put you a couple of tacks in it. And then work your way around the corners. Pull any loose slack out. Now we're ready to nail our top. We're going to pull it so that we have a nice seam down here at the bottom. The way we do that is get on this side, get you a good handful of it with your two thumbs in the middle. Pull that fabric. Once you get it wrapped around the top, put you a staple to hold it, and then work it out from there. Once you get it wrapped around, you can usually roll it around that edge. Give yourself some more slack. You don't want to pull it too tight in one section and not tight enough in the other. You won't have a very uniform shape to the seam. Just constantly checking to make sure I'm not pulling too much one way or the other. There's our seam. We're nailed off. Now all we need to do is install our hideaway strips, and we're completed. Now that we have our cover completely installed on our cushion, we can install our hideaway strip. To do this, lay it on the inside of your seat cushion like this, over any of your staples, and we're going to staple in this little gap. Once you have all your staples in place, your hideaway is done, you can repeat this process on the other side of the cushion, and then we're completed. Now that we have our first side done, we just need to repeat this process on the opposite side. Once we have this completed, we are finished installing our Madjax front seat cover.